In the race to AI, most companies are starting with a flat tire, bad data. You're listening to The Data Edge. I'm Erwin de Werd from 𝗕𝗄𝗶. In each episode, Stephanie Wiechers and I explore the intersection of data quality, enterprise standardization, and the real-world value of information. Whether you're an asset manager or a bid specialist, we are here to give you a blueprint for a reliable data layer that fuels smart decisions in the next generation technologies. This is the foundation for what's next. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in the introduction, we talk about a couple of things. We talk about standardization, but also the blueprint for next generation technology. And I would like to start with that because recently I see this interview and I think I agree with that it becomes now more and more easy to build applications. So we will see more and more applications, what can be very smart applications. However, then, it also become evident, like, how do we move data from one system to the other? So that means, I think it will be more dynamically, more and more, to have data moving from one system into the other to, actually work on the data and then do the application, how do you say, functionalities on top of that, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so with all these, vibe coding opportunities, but also just working with Copilot and getting some information out of a data set, suddenly everyone has become a developer, or everyone has become a data scientist, and that means basically without any prior experience, now there's so much possible, which is really cool. It's one of the coolest developments that's been made. But with that comes an immense responsibility, because where before you would have data scientists and when they would make their analysis, when I would make an analysis as a data scientist, what I would do is I would make my dashboards, my mockups, would also just find my numbers. But you're super, super critical and you know how to be critical on those numbers. You implement all the sense checks and then you know how and where to go check them. And there's always a ton of mistakes made. And then you go to the data that's behind it and then you see, okay, wait, this project manager hasn't booked their hours. This item is categorized incorrectly, so suddenly it seems as if one project's been very expensive, or you spend $1 million on fruit bowls, random things happen.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, and I've seen this also several times. That first of all, the challenge is of course to make these dashboards, but this now is disappearing. Because now it becomes very easy to make all these dashboards. But the next thing then is, if you have the dashboards and you sit in this meeting, I remember I spent a lot of time preparing a dashboard and I was so happy with this. And then I come in a meeting with salespeople and I show the dashboard and they immediately find the one thing that they say, yeah, but this is not right. This number cannot be good. And then there is a big downfall that then they say, okay, the whole dashboard is not good because there is mistakes in it. But my opinion is there are always these flaws, always. But the overall picture of the dashboard is still very powerful. However, it becomes more important then to get the data right because people will be more critical about it.
Well, when there's flaws in the dashboard and in the numbers that it's showing, I actually do agree with your colleagues there. Because when you can't trust what's there, then it's really, really hard to make decisions on it. So it's essential that whatever shows in the dashboard is reliable. So that means either it needs to be perfectly correct or it needs to be highlighted where there are still some possible errors, some possible data entry problems. Because you don't want to make decisions on a dashboard that's not reflecting the actual ground truth of the reality below it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. But, so I normally look at the trends in these kind of things. However, of course, if you focus on the actual, yeah, more details in the data, then it must be reliable. So the data must be good quality. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, of course, then if the data sits, one of the other challenges, for instance, I also recognize that, as an example, there's a lot of data sitting in finance systems. That's always a good source for data. But then you want use it not, yeah, like for commercial reasons, as an example. So you want create this dashboard, but then how to get this data out of this final system, move it to your other system to work further or to combine it. So moving data from one system to the other, that becomes so more important to have it more dynamics. So, and how do you see that? So what's more important to get that, let's say, possible?
Well, so most larger or more mature businesses now make use of some form of a data lake. So that could be Microsoft Fabric. That's obviously a very popular choice because, you know, everyone is on the Microsoft cloud. Well, there's like a ton of them out there. Databricks. We've previously also ran projects where the client was much smaller, and there we would just link their ERP system to a BigQuery setup, and so that would then allow them to still merge different data sources. So like sales data, POS data, any inventory to different parts of the system. It doesn't really matter how you do it. It's more of a internal preference where there's lots of considerations, right? Like price is often a big one, and what's our tech stack look like? Because it does make sense to use Microsoft if you're already using Microsoft. How easy is this to use? How easy does it integrate with other AI tools? But in the end, the migration to these platforms or like using these platforms is often seen as a natural inflection point of taking some care around the data quality that's going in. And the reason why is essentially when you're going to use these data lakes, those will serve as a foundation to then build those dashboards upon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The quality of the data is also extremely important. And well, the other thing what I noticed with several of the projects running is standardization. And all industries have different standardization, like in construction or in manufacturing or in healthcare. They all have their own standardization in there. And that helps, of course, to share data across different entities in that industry, right? So how do you see this, and how do you think this will develop?
Well, when I link it to the AI developments, there are, well, in my opinion, there are two ways to go about this. And I think standardization shouldn't be seen as the holy grail. There are a lot of advantages, or there are a lot of things to say for it. So we, of course, work with the UNSPSC standard, and we help companies also move into that standard without, you know, being some bureau in India that like does everything by hand, with also the corresponding inaccuracies that come with that, because there's no context of the business. Like, having said that, we know that in general it is expensive to move into these type of schemes. Well, especially when you haven't been doing it yet, because there's like some learning curve. Everyone in the business also needs to adopt to the new system. And especially when you're a smaller organization, there's quite a lot to say for just having like a very straightforward, small and lean system that just works with, you know, what you are only processing in your business and what works for you. Whenever you get a bit larger, though, then you can think about if you are buying like 10,000 different items, and you need to categorize those, well, at some point you're also going to have to spend a lot of time designing a system, which will then only be useful internally, so no one who works with you will have any knowledge of it before, and it won't integrate into any type of standard or system. So that's like a trade-off to make, I would say.
Yeah. Well, even though when you are a smaller company, you might want to work with, or you can be a supplier, right? You can be a vendor, you can be a system integrator, whatever. So you sit in a larger network, and if these bigger organizations, they work with these standards, then yeah, you would like to adapt to that. So recently I heard about a company in the, let's say the manufacturing, engineering and so, and they also said that for many of their clients, this standardization is extremely important because they need to respond and to work together with companies that have these standards.
Yeah, and then there's a bit of a challenge in like translating what you already have into the new
Yeah,
language.
exactly. So that is a challenge. Yeah, well, let's focus a little bit on that and that how you can do so. Because I also agree with you that if you're a smaller company, then you're not sitting waiting, oh, let's do all this work to work in the standards. However, if you would like to serve certain clients and they have these standardization requirements, then you have to. So what are the latest developments to bring you from a non-standard situation into a standardized situation?
Well, all I can say is it's not the most easy exercise in the world. Sorry to bring the bad news there. No,
It's realistic.
well, the first step is decide like what standard are you working with, right? So yes, there's the UNSPSC. It's like it's very broad. It's industry agnostic, and it's really meant to serve as like an international standard. But within like different industries, there is of course like the fire standard, and well, I can give you a ton of examples. But anyway, different industries have different standards. So if your industry has one, like, then it makes sense to focus on that. It also depends on the goals, and so sometimes there's a little bit too much strategy without having the final goal in mind. And so then you can get stuck onto like a detail, and then that becomes the highest priority. But in the end, there's a reason why you would want to move towards any other system, which often is cost saving, right? It's when you are well able to classify what you're actually doing, that allows for a very, very straightforward way of identifying kind of gaps, spend leaks, but any type of inefficiency that is in the business.
And can you give a reason why one of your clients and projects want to move into such a standard?
Yeah, so that's very much around a cost-saving exercise. And what happens there in procurement is obviously they do have a classification, right? They're like very well organized, very well structured. They have different entities on which they buy, and then they have different cost categories in which everything they buy already goes. So there is a pretty solid baseline. The thing is that at the moment the baseline is not granular enough to really do the spend analysis correctly. And in order to do a proper spend analysis, you'll need a very, very granular level of...
Okay, yeah, so this is really tied into spend analysis exercises, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we discussed several things, right? So the dynamics of moving data from one system to the other, that will only grow. So that's an important thing. Doing so, then you have concerns regarding the quality of the data, especially also because of the trend of building dashboards and giving insights. That's basically, it's not about the dashboard, but it's more about the insights that people will have into the data. Then they will also find the flaws. Probably they were always there, but now all of a sudden you can see them more easily. And that gives challenges, of course, and also the requests to improve the data and the data quality. So I guess that will be a growing concern. And lastly then, what might help is standardization, especially when you work in a bigger environment where other parties are involved. So all these things are important, and I think we should dive maybe deeper in some next episodes in these different elements there. And for now, I want to thank you for the insights in these fields. It's always very valuable, and I looking forward to what you can tell us and how you can bring us more in the world of data the next time.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you then. Bye bye.